we have today a panel to talk about the world that we have to win and the world that we must win and the role of DSA today. I'd like all of them to introduce themselves in their own words when they give their remarks. And aside from all of our resolution debates that we have coming up this weekend, we felt it was very important to also think outwardly and hear from some of the member leaders in DSA doing work and have them reflect on what does it mean in this moment, in this historical moment, and give their perspectives from a variety of perspectives in DSA. So first, I'm going to actually ask Khalid Kamau to come up because he's from Atlanta.
Good morning, socialists. My name is Khalid. I'm Councilman Khalid. I first want to say that some of you may have read in our local paper, the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, some members of the Democratic Party of Georgia issuing an unwelcome statement to all of you. In the article, they basically, a chair of the party basically said that socialism has no home in the Democratic Party and that we should, in effect, go back to where we came from. Well, my name is Khalid. I was born here in Atlanta, and I am an elected socialist. I'm the first Black Lives Matter organizer elected to public office. In Atlanta's new twin city, South Fulton, Georgia, it's right next to here, 100 square miles, 100,000 people, $100 million budget, and the blackest city in America. So as a Southern Black native socialist, I want to welcome all of you to the city of Atlanta and to the South. You may not know this, but we in the South have been waiting on you to arrive. I want to start out talking 50 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. warned us about the triple evils of racism, capitalism, and militarism. We are still fighting the military-industrial complex. We're still fighting the capitalist industrial complex. We're now fighting the prison industrial complex, especially here in the South. But there is another complex that we need to fight, and that is the electability complex. I want to talk to you about dismantling the electability complex. The electability complex isn't just a system of delegates and superdelegates that allows illegitimate people to steal Democratic primaries and then lose the election to people who stole the presidential election, because karma is real. The electability complex isn't just about the Electoral College, which allows someone to lose 2 million votes and still become president of the United States. And we're being warned now that he might lose 5 million votes and still become president of the United States. The electability complex is more than these things. It is our antiquated two-party system that says you have to choose this person that's supported by capitalists or this person that's supported by some other capitalists. Let me ask you this. When we talk about political directions in this country, what do we talk about? Left and right, right? The left and the right. What are the two other cardinal directions? Up and down. Let me tell you how brilliant the architects of this electability complex are. We should be talking about up and down, the top and the bottom, the 1% and the rest of us. But they have colonized even our language so that we don't talk about up and down. We talk about left and right. And now it's become even more abstract. We talk about red and blue, right? We're segregating ourselves into teams. The electability complex wants us to see this as a sporting event. So we have these debates that start with national anthems and pre-commentaries and post-commentaries, and the whole thing has become a game that we play every 4 years while nothing changes. The people in this room are going to dismantle the electability complex. And let me tell you how. We're going to run candidates, and we're going to win. I've heard a lot of talk lately about these fringe candidates. Lots of people are saying, oh, I wish we could just get all these extra candidates off the stage, all these fringe candidates. Let me tell you something about fringe candidates. In 2016, a fringe candidate from Burlington, Vermont named Bernie Sanders got everyone talking about universal health care and free public college. Now nearly everyone in the Democratic Party is talking about universal health care and free public college. There are a couple of real fringy candidates in this election. Marianne Williamson, Andrew Yang. They've got everyone in the Democratic Party talking about reparations and universal basic income. So we have to understand that us fringe people are future thinkers. Today's fringe is tomorrow's future. So while you're here, I need you to dream your biggest ideas and connect with other people so that we can win the future. A lot of the ideas that we talk about as socialists seem foreign or abstract. People love to go to the extreme of our extreme and say that we want to, like tomorrow, we want to get rid of all property ownership, right? We want to dismantle all corporations, and we do. But we don't have to do that tomorrow. There are 100 steps between here and there. And what I've learned as a Southern organizer is that Southern people are practical people, and that Black people are naturally socialists. At my church, I go to Vision Church. You all are welcome to come to the Vision Cathedral at Grant Park. But at my church last week, we had a young lady who was going to Dillard. It's an HBCU, historically Black college in Louisiana. And she wasn't going to be able to come back to school. She had done her freshman year. She got a partial scholarship, but she'd run up bills, and she wasn't going to be able to go back to school until her bills were paid. In that service, we all raised thousands of dollars to pay her bill so that she could go back to school. That's socialism. That's socialism. In the city of South Fulton, which is a city on the south side of Atlanta, and it's like the south side of everywhere in America, right? We have suffered from hundreds of years of not only Jim Crow segregation, but racism and lending and redlining and all of the things that you all know about. We have a lot of blighted property, and we can already see that capitalism is failing us because we try to get developers interested in our area, and they're only interested in, gas stations or dollar stores. They're only interested in jobs that pay less than the minimum wage. By the way, you should know that here in Georgia, the minimum wage is $5.15. And for not only restaurant workers, but also home healthcare workers, people who take care of the sick and the elderly, it's $2.12. I have been pushing the radical idea that if we can't get developers to build what we need in our communities, that we should buy the land and own the land and develop it as a city. That idea is catching on. But on my city council, I need 4 votes. And I am 2 votes away. I am 2 votes away from our city creating community land trusts and owning land for the people. So it's very important that we get involved in electoral politics at the local level. At the local level is where we make change. 3 years ago, last month, I was sitting in City Hall protesting then Mayor Kasim Reed and our police chief for the dozens of people that have died in Atlanta from the hands of police. Not just the Mike Browns and the Trayvon Martins, but here in Atlanta, the Alexia Christians and the dozens and dozens, the Ariston Waiters and the Kane Rogers and the dozens of people that have been killed by police. When I became a councilman in the city of South Fulton, I got to pick the police chief. So I went from protesting police chiefs to picking police chiefs. And I wouldn't vote for any police chief that hadn't read the Ferguson report. And then when I got into office, we defunded the police a little bit. We couldn't get rid of them in 1 year. But we defunded the police a little bit in favor of parks programs because I ran on the radical idea that we should invest in young people before they get into trouble. So it's important to run these local elections and win because this is where we put the meat on the bones of our ideas. This is where we show that our ideas are not just pie in the sky, but that they can work, that they deliver real results, and that we can scale them up from the local level to the county level to the state level to the national level. And so that is very, very, very important. We can't get lost in arguing ideas without implementing them. So I want to encourage all of you, when you leave here, to get involved in someone's campaign. It helps if they're a socialist. But if they're halfway decent and you get access to a Vote Builder account and you learn how to use Vote Builder, you can take that account and go and get a socialist elected that you believe in. But it's very important for us to understand the mechanics of how these elections work. And it's also very important that we not let people reduce our ideas to these extreme theoretical things and not what socialism is really about. What socialism is really about is that people are more important than profits. That individuals are more important than corporations, and that corporations are not individuals. And we have to make that real, not only in our politics, but in our personal lives. So I am a landowner. I am gentried. I moved home, a quick story about me. I moved home to take care of my mom who was dying from stage 4 breast cancer and did not get access to the best health care available because she was in a plan, and we all know how that works. And I inherited her house, and that's actually how I got to run in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I live in the house I grew up in. And I make $13,000 a year as a councilman. So a whole other thing that we need to do is start raising the pay of local elected officials, because what we really are public accountants. You ask yourself, where else does someone manage a $100 million budget and get paid $13,000 a year? That's a recipe for corruption. So I rent out my room. I have a roommate, and I rent out my room. And this young lady is always, she just has she has a lot of drama going on. It's one of the reasons I just got here in time today. She has a lot of drama going on. There's always a reason that she can't pay her rent, that she's going to be late on her rent. So capitalism tells me that as a landlord, I need to put her out. Because everything in capitalism, including people, are disposable. And there's always more. You can always get another widget or another iPhone or another tenant. But I had to have a conversation with myself this morning and say, I'm a socialist. And this young lady, who is the daughter of a pimp and a sex worker, both of her parents have been on drugs, is now in a PhD program at Georgia State University. And she's studying Black habitus and imposter theory syndrome, and she is so necessary to this academy. There is no other voice like hers in this academy. She was going to take her comps, and she was really worried about it. And I said, everything that you haven't studied, you've already lived. And so you are valuable. So I can't discard her. We're going to have to work out this rent situation, but I can't discard her. We cannot discard each other. Too many of us have been socialist in our theory, but capitalist in our personal interactions with each other. There is a whole cancel culture that is growing in America. We have to cancel that cancel culture, because that is actually a product of capitalism that says that all things, including people, are disposable, and that relationships don't have value if they don't generate products or profit for us. So we've got a bunch of resolutions on the agenda, and we've got a bunch of constitutional amendments, but I want you to know, no matter how fierce the arguing is and the debate is here, that none of us are each other's enemy. Our enemy is capitalism. Our enemy is the electability complex. And the only way that we're going to dismantle that is if we stick together and work together. So while we're debating all these resolutions, I want you to also, and I have to say this as a Southern person, anyone that knows Black Lives Matter knows that we pattern ourselves after SNCC, which is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and we believe in organizing for the long haul. Make sure that at some point in this convention, you are organizing, that you are connecting with DSA members from other chapters. If you're in the South, I should meet you. We should be trading legislation, right? The American Legislative Exchange Council and the fascists, they're trading legislation. That's why we have all these ridiculous bills, right? Illegalizing abortion and access to safe abortions for women, because they all talk to each other. When they get to conferences, they have drinks and they do all of the business of the conference, but then they start talking about ideas and legislation. This is what passed in my district. I was able to get this passed in my state. Why don't you copy and paste this legislation and see if you can get it passed? If there's someone who's won a campaign or who runs winning campaigns like myself, make sure that you meet them. Make sure that if you have a candidate that is running in your community, that they meet those people. We have got to network beyond the ideas. We have got to build a grassroots organization here, and this is where it starts. This convention is where it starts. Do not let that opportunity pass. Lastly, I want to invite you all out to the blackest city in America if you don't have anything to do tonight. One of the ways that I'm showing how socialism works is that we have a monthly block party. We are giving away school supplies because school starts next week, and we're showing Boys in the Hood in honor of John Singleton, so we'll be doing that out tonight. And we're also, one of the things that we're doing is I have learned that truancy in young girls is affected by their access to feminine hygiene products. So in our book bag giveaway in South Fulton tonight, we're going to be giving away feminine hygiene products. These are real things that you can do when you're in office, but we got to be in office. So let's, again, work together, organize with one another, and talk about how we dismantle this electability complex. Welcome to Atlanta. Thank you all so much for coming. South Fulton forever.
Point of inquiry. Point of inquiry. When and where is the block party?
I'm sorry, you all can go to khalidcares.com. That's KHALID cares.com/summer. All of the events are there. All of the information is there. But it's at Creel Park. That's 2775 Creel Road, 30349. It is one exit south of the airport. It's a $5 ride on, it's a $10 ride on Lyft, right? A $5 ride on Uber, but you're going to tip your driver that extra $5. And again, you can find that at khalidcares.com/summer.
Hi. Okay. So my name is Erika Lopez Alvarez. I am from DSA LA. Big shout out. Thank you for coming down. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to all the important work that you do here today. Black lives do matter. Brown lives do matter. This is who I serve and this is who I answer to. I answer to all of my community. And I'm here talking to you today on behalf of teachers. I'm here talking to you today about our strike, about our national strike movement, about everything that we hold true and valuable. So I'm going to divert your attention to this really important statistic here to the right of me. The UTLA strike was an outcry of 30,000 educators for public education. So yes, thank you. So those 30,000 were a part of a larger movement, and we know that strikes are on the rise, and you can take a look at this chart here. Strikes are on the rise from 1986, where it was all across different sectors, and then educators just took it in 2018. We increased that strike visibility. We're at 485,200 people striking. Whoa. Yes, whoa. So this is the biggest thing we've seen in decades. Why? Because people really do want to see other people standing up for themselves. We feel that as a community, educators in the strike were supported by their communities because we were focusing on bargaining for the common good and making strides in social justice reform. We ended oppressive practices like random searches and excessive testing. That's why teachers have been winning all across the country. We demand the best for our communities collectively, and we win together. In LA, our union leadership planned our strike for 4 years, and they received a 97% authorization for strike. That was huge. That's right. Everybody was on the strike. UTLA and LAUSD entered into negotiations, but we really started with the grassroots movements that DSA members architected. It was wearing red t-shirts on Tuesdays. It was having the difficult conversations. It was going to our union and all of their meetings and seeing what they needed from us so that they could be successful. In red states, rank and file teachers had to organize their strikes themselves using these same grassroots techniques, I'll call them. And they won. Those victories were only possible because people with a vision like ours were on the ground floor with those unions, organizing with fellow educators. In Los Angeles, the movement and its community outreach was shaped by workers by demanding resources like a charter school moratorium, full-time nurses, full-time psychiatric counselors, an end to random searches, an end to excessive standardized testing, and yes, a livable wage for our teachers. The strike lasted 6 days in the rain. This LA girl was not prepared. So we were joined by students, parents, shop workers. They were greeted with our red UTLA t-shirts. We were all holding up picket signs. We were chanting. And on one occasion, we were out in front of LAUSD headquarters singing with Tom Morello and the UTLA teacher band, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." It was the best moment ever. And we won. This teacher will strike without hesitation, and let me tell you why. History has taught us that oppressive governments silence public education first. They are the temples to democracy. We know that private and for-profit entities have come in and they've underfunded our schools. It works like this. One-size-fits-all racist and exclusionary testing led to, surprise, surprise, low test scores in the most starved areas of our district, which also predominantly served children of color. Then charter organizations came in as a result of billionaire think tanks owned by the Waltons, the Broads, and the Gates. They said that they could run schools better and with half the money. They moved in. Real estate investors created private management groups that paid themselves salaries from renting school spaces to the district. And all they had to do was make sure that they were performing at the same level as our local public schools were. That's it. And they were renewed by our school board because those are the policies, and we're not engaging with ed policy. If ed policy was answering to the people that it's supposed to serve, this would not be the case. With new charter schools sucking enrollment and thus funding from public schools, it's no wonder why public schools have trouble meeting student needs. So again, why will I go on strike? It's simple. My students deserve a seat at the table. This is the noble work of laborers across America. We believe in a democratic socialist future because we all deserve a seat at the table. We deserve to shape our government and its policies to distribute resources fairly and sustainably. Was it scary to strike? Absolutely. But in the words of AOC, we did it anyway. We also had strike veterans on the line from our 1989 strike, reassuring us that it would be over if we all stood together. We would get our demands. My union red is inherited from 2 generations of union members. My grandfather was an immigrant, and he worked in a bread factory. He committed his union handbook to memory and translated it into Spanish. My father then took me to Teamster meetings and later was fired for trying to unionize one of his other workplaces. To this day, he has no regrets. And then there's me, and when I was called to go on strike, my father immediately offered to watch my daughter, and my mother always had a warm breakfast burrito ready for me to go on strike. It was fabulous. The first day was hell. I was pumped, and like I said, not ready for the rain. So sick and tired, I got up and the next day, and my husband had laid out these thermals and old shirts and bags to cover my feet because we were all sold out of rain boots in Los Angeles. I wondered how long the strike would last. I wondered if it was selfish of me to deny my family the pay I was losing. I wondered if I would continue to get ill. And then ancestral knowledge saved me. My blood saved me. So my grandfather hadn't talked to me for years, and he called me that morning, the second morning of the strike, and he said in muddled English, "Don't give in ever. You fight alongside your union and your community. You're the right in this wrong, and you can do this." I slipped on my portable radio, my Doc Martens, and I handled it. It is what it was. It was amazing. We need to continue to build on the education we took away from the strike. During the strike, teachers were leading tasks, writing scripts, asking people not to cross the picket line, and why. We strategically would walk in circles to discourage crossing entrance to schools, which was a little illegal, but we did it anyway. We also coordinated with each other to film and report people that were actually threatening us to run us over because they wanted to come in and collect the pay that scabs got paid. We coordinated lunches, we huddled, and we chanted. Our community stepped up as well. Parents understood what the strike was for and brought us breakfast. I can't count the number of tacos, coffee, and pupusas that sustained our fight. On day 2, we were empowered by tacos courtesy of DSA, $10,500 worth. We found refuge in our local businesses. They gave us free coffee. We were able to, as a community, unify and demystify the strike. This teacher is never afraid to go on strike. I know that my community will back me as I back them. This is how we win. We have to deal with the fear of including our communities in organizing conversations. After the strike, we were unified in a way at the workplace that had never happened before. There were only people that joined us on the strike and then people that didn't. All teachers know that they have to be activists. It's not enough to just clock in and clock out of work. Since the strike, our focus has also been on the Schools and Communities First initiative for California on the ballot in 2020. It's the tax the rich legislation, which DSA will be throwing ourselves into alongside the union. It'll translate into $11 billion for our children. Yes, absolutely. Last but not least, we are working to get the only Democratic Socialist candidate with a comprehensive education plan, Bernie Sanders, into office. Last week, Bernie Sanders came and talked to our union. He's the only one that has done so. He presented his Thurgood Marshall Plan for saving public education. He also committed to a charter school moratorium. We have teachers organizing also with Labor for Bernie in its goal to secure the union endorsement for Bernie. California will go Bernie. I want to leave you with these takeaways. The teacher strike wave of 2018 and 2019 demystified and intrigued the activist imagination in all our communities. It made teachers themselves activists. The project of the democratization of schooling is a community effort, and we need you all on deck. DSA has the people power needed to fuel this revolution. We have the ability to democratize from a variety of perspectives. I like to think of all of you as educators. You all know what we need to do. Join the revolution on the front lines as a teacher, as a parent, as a community supporter, as a member of another union, or like my dad, willing to set up a union at a workplace. Go out and do what LA teachers did. Huelga, withhold your valuable labor. Thank you.
Good morning, comrades. I'm Thea Riofrancos, pronoun she, her, Providence DSA, and I'm also on the steering committee of the Eco-Socialist Working Group. I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to speak a bit about eco-socialism and also for all the hard work of all the convention organizers to plan this historic gathering. I'm going to be real with you. We have a decade to embark on a just transition to climate safety. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we need to cut global carbon emissions in at least by half by 2030 to stave off a climate crisis that threatens the very basis of human society. Simultaneously, we are facing mass species extinction, ecosystem collapse, and soil exhaustion. Addressing these calamities is an enormous task. Ultimately, we need to confront their root cause, capitalism, a system that values profit and growth above human and planetary well-being. But where do we begin? To start with, we should demand massive public investment in renewable energy, social housing, mass transit, and ecosystem restoration. We need forceful regulation and militant direct action to put the fossil fuel industry out of business. We must act in solidarity with those most vulnerable to climate change, communities who are also on the front lines of the struggle for a just transition. In other words, we need a radical Green New Deal now. Every day on Fox News, Republicans call this socialism. We, the largest socialist organization in the United States, should own this label. The path to a livable climate and the path to democratic socialism are one and the same. Along that path, of course, we will encounter many powerful enemies. Enemy number one is the fossil fuel industry. They have a vested interest in destroying the planet. They have knowingly committed crimes against humanity. Their assets should be devalued and expropriated, and their executives prosecuted. We must immediately phase out oil, gas, and coal while ensuring economic security and dignity for workers and the communities that they support. We also need to target investor-owned utilities. Their profit model is an impediment to decarbonizing our energy system. Both of these corporate juggernauts have the firm support of yet another powerful enemy, the political establishment. The Trump administration is rolling back what few regulations we have to control the fracking boom and protect clean air and water. But conservatives are doing much more than just deregulating. Reactionary forces around the globe are laying the conditions for eco-apartheid, in which working class and racialized people suffer the worst consequences of climate chaos and the wealthy band together to protect themselves. ICE and Border Patrol is right-wing climate policy, as is Fortress Europe. But it's not just conservatives. When the Democratic establishment dismisses the Green New Deal as a, quote, green dream, this is also climate denial, and it's very dangerous. With all of these enemies, we have to be clear-headed about the tasks ahead. If we evaluate the political terrain, we should also see tremendous opportunities. We are, of course, the largest U.S. socialist organization in almost 100 years. We have political allies, insurgent and inspiring elected officials like Comrade Khalid at all levels of public office in this country. Indeed, in just a few years, we have transformed the horizons of political possibility. We must use this power and increase it by steadfastly confronting the most pressing crisis of our century. The Green New Deal, advocated for by our allied politicians in Congress, addresses the severity of the crisis. And it recognizes the deep links between rampant inequality and climate change. This connection is based on the facts. A very small global elite is responsible for the worst emissions, and the world's most vulnerable are suffering the worst effects of climate chaos. We can only build a climate movement of the 99% if climate policies improve the material well-being of the working class. At its most radical, the Green New Deal offers the hope of a society that puts people and the planet before corporate profit. For this reason, the Green New Deal is a terrain of class conflict. The DSA occupies a unique position on this terrain. We're on the left flank of a broad coalition fighting fossil capital and their political allies. In addition to our numbers and capacity, we bring an anti-capitalist and anti-oppression analysis to this fight. With this analysis, the Eco-Socialist Working Group has spent the past 2 years building consensus around the urgency of confronting the climate crisis. This working group now has over 1,100 members. There are 45 chapters with eco-socialist working groups, and over 60 chapters, national working groups, and caucuses endorsed our vision for a radical Green New Deal. This vision is inspiring DSA campaigns across the country. A dozen chapters are currently fighting for publicly owned, democratically controlled utilities to replace the private companies that profit off of fossil fuel energy. From Providence to New York City, from Chicago to Boston to Northern California, our efforts are radically changing the conversation around energy as a public good. But the fight for climate safety is broader than our energy systems. In 2019 and beyond, all politics is climate politics. We need to address the climate crisis and integrate eco-socialism into all of the work that we do. First, climate is a labor issue. We need a just transition for workers in environmentally harmful industries. Moreover, rising temperatures make outdoor work, whether in agriculture, construction, or delivering mail, increasingly dangerous. They lead to public health crises, burdening overexploited healthcare workers. But we also need to think about green jobs more broadly. All workers that care for our communities and the planet should be part of our eco-socialist vision. Striking teachers and striking nurses are fighting for a low-carbon world. Climate justice is also migrant justice. Many of the migrants brutally repressed by our border and immigration regime are fleeing Central America in part due to droughts that threaten agriculture and food security. And climate justice is indigenous justice and racial justice. Marginalized communities bear the brunt of toxic contamination, with power plants and pipelines disproportionately located in communities of color and on indigenous lands. The climate crisis is also connected to housing and transit justice. To build a low-carbon world, we need to decommodify both and create affordable and dense neighborhoods with free mass transit for all. Lastly, we can't address climate chaos without confronting imperialism and militarism. The U.S. military is one of the worst carbon polluters on the planet, and U.S. imperialism has sought control of fossil fuels and exacerbated resource conflict around the world. Climate change is the thread that links so many struggles for a better world. The society we live in is violent, unequal, and destroying the planet. The society we want is egalitarian, emancipatory, and supported by healthy ecosystems and a safe climate. A radical Green New Deal is a stepping stone to building democratic socialism in our lifetimes. To conclude, I want to bring us back to the work we have ahead of us this weekend. We are commencing the largest socialist gathering in the United States since the peak of the Socialist Party in the early 20th century. The decisions we make will shape our organizational direction and the fate of the U.S. left more broadly. Meanwhile, we have 11 years to make radical changes in our economy to avert the worst of the climate crisis. This is a world historic opportunity to build the political power we need to put our society on the path to climate safety and democratic socialism. We must seize it. Thank you, and have a wonderful convention.